inside the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com. The House is an area in social media where individuals can come together to discuss societal issues, and from that discussion influence political action. Welcome to the House,
where our house is your house.
Good evening, everyone. This is Johnny Hill. You're inside the Progressive Talk Zone. We are live streaming from the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com in the House of Public Discourse Forum on your Facebook page. We're gonna be discussing the outstanding news we got today. This is we're celebrating a little bit on the show tonight. The recent census numbers, census data has come out, and something that me and Chris, and first of all, I am remiss. We want to welcome Mr. Rich Romine, founder. He's an author and founder of the Foundations Movement, House of Public Discourse member. Welcome to the program, Rich.
Good evening, Johnny.
And of course, Mr. Salvation Rose. Mr. Christopher Witt Diamond, singer, song,
particular gadfly,
political
all around trouble, man.
Is on the show, and what we were going to talk about tonight, guys, is this new census data. We're in a celebratory mood because we, for 2 years on this program, have been talking about the changing dynamics in America, and we've seen it coming. And in this latest census report that came out today, or came out in the last several days, has pretty much bared out what we've been saying here inside the Progressive Talk Zone. And before we get the conversation started, to kind of bring everyone in the audience up with what we're talking about, I'm going to play a little clip.
What's changed in the U.S. over the last 10 years? The Census Bureau releasing its 2020 data, numbers the states will use to redistrict and potentially shake up Congress. NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki is at the big board. Steve, it's awesome to see you. All right, so this data could set off the most hectic, contentious redistricting cycle ever. And I know nobody gets fired up about redistricting like you do. So hit us with the big takeaways from this census data.
Yeah, well, let's take a look here, Alice. Every 10 years, we really get these numbers, and they kind of last for the next 10 years. We'll be staring at them for the next 10 years. Hey, it's sort of the numbers that define our country. Let me take you through the big picture. First of all, the U.S. population sits now just about 331 million. And I wanted to show you how things have been changing, because, again, we get this readout every 10 years. We get a readout of the racial makeup of the country like this every 10 years. So go back just 2 censuses ago. This is 2000, turn of the century. The country was almost 70% white. You could see about 12% Hispanic. This is what it looked like 20 years ago. Now, in the last census 10 years ago, this is how much things changed in the first 10 years of this century. The white population went down to under 64%, a growing Hispanic population, a growing Asian population. So the question was, in 2020, how much more would things have changed when it comes to these demographic categories? Well, the answer is changed a lot more than people were expecting. Take a look at this. Now, with the new census, the numbers out today, the white population in the United States, not only is it under 60%, it's well under 60%, 57.8% white. Yeah. The Hispanic population continues to grow. That's nearly 20% now, getting close to 20%, a Hispanic population. The black population's pretty level. And the Asian American population, it continues to grow, now basically at 6%. So the diversification of America is continuing. The overall population is not growing at that fast of a rate. It's actually the second slowest 10-year period for population growth in this country ever. But the diversity within that continues to be a big story. And we can just show.
Guys, Chris, first, Mr. Salvation Rose, have we not been shouting that this trend from the mountaintops for almost 2 years now?
Okay, well, let's just step back a minute and take a look at what we're really looking at, this white victimology, this white narrative that the immigrants coming in are changing the character of America's racial structure so much that the white people are going to be in the minority, and these other minorities will soon be in the majority. So this is what triggered this absolute panic, this absolute abject turn to this white nationalism, racism. I mean, we have never seen people, white people, calling the police on black people trying to, get in a public pool, move into their own house, deliver groceries or mail. And immediately there's some white jackass calling the police. You can't tell me this isn't part of an orchestrated, policy on the behalf of the KKK and other white racist groups to basically oppress black people as much as possible. Anyway, the changing dynamic of our racial structure is what triggered such people like Donald Trump and the Koch brothers and the rest of these people to make this desperate effort to install Trump basically for life. That's what he wanted. He kept saying, I'm going to be here. I should get 2 or 3 terms because I should get a do-over because someone spied on me or something, or somebody didn't like me. So, this has been their plan for quite a while.
Well, Chris, Chris, your comments lead me right into my first bullet point.
Okay.
And Mr. Rich, I would like to get your thoughts. And when I get done reading the bullet point, you can kind of weigh in with your thoughts about this. But the Trump, who never met a fact or figure, he didn't want to distort, guys. I mean,
truer words.
He desperately wanted to prevent the Census Bureau from getting an accurate count of people living in America. We've seen that played out all through the process. And I know that we, Mr. Rich, have been aware of this, and me and you have talked about this many times. And I'd like to get your initial thoughts.
Okay. Let me make a quick blanket statement. The 2010 census is what turned a lot of white Americans radical against Obama. That is my opinion, and I believe there's a lot to back that. And I think we're seeing a real pushback from where they were in 2008 even, and where they are in 2021 to really authoritarianism, thinking that's their only way to keep control of the country. So yeah, I think it is census driven.
Yep, definitely. The data would suggest that the reaction against Obama and the changing racial makeup, especially of the brown race, the people coming in as immigrants, Texas and other places, but it's not even close. If they really look at the figures, the one is the Oriental, is the
right. Well, we were doing
Easterners. That's actually the largest growing,
right.
Besides the Hispanic,
Right. Well, we were. I was a guest on a program a couple of weeks ago, the Hair of the Dog Show with Carrie and Andy. And we were talking about global displacements, and this topic came up, and goes to your point, Chris. But I would like to add a little something. So Trump's administration pursued policies that suppressed the count among hard to count communities, including immigrants, people of color, low income individuals, and those even in rural areas. He worked. I mean, our research bore this out day in and day and night. That they were, aggressively attacking the census and wanted to stop it and basically effectively disenfranchise these people. My source for this information is the census report itself.
Well, they tried to stop it a month early.
Yeah,
they tried to stop the census a month early. Remember, we had to have a bloody Supreme Court judgment on it because they wanted to cut it off a month early. I mean,
Right.
Can you imagine what would have happened?
I know, and the Trump administration implemented strategies, guys, that were cooked up by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and I looked this group up, and the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated this group as a hate group. What is your thoughts on that, Mr. Rich?
Well, I'm not very familiar with that group, to tell you the truth, but that it's all same part and parcel of the same thing. Whether it's a group specifically to do that, it's probably funded by the Koch brothers, would be my guess.
Yeah, the names are always bizarre too. For racial equality, you'll find out it's the bloody KKK.
Yeah, exactly. The funding comes from the same people. The Koch network is big.
Mercers.
Yeah, the Mercers. They all come from those same people. And that's why I keep saying, cut the head off the snake and you kill the snake.
Yep.
But yeah, it doesn't surprise me, even though I haven't run into that group before. Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, well, let me explain, or not explain, Johnny. Come on, get your shit together. Let me further that statement by saying the advocacy for immigration policies aimed quite overtly at preserving what, guys? The white supremacy in the United States.
Status quo.
That's what this whole situation is in a nutshell, is the preservation of white supremacy.
Well, I think it goes even a little further. I believe it's the preservation of the abuse culture. It's why they abuse not only black and brown men, but women of all races. It's why there's so much against feminism. I mean, these are the things that they really fear, because if there's a majority of women in this country, it's not men, it's women. And if they were to gain political power like they should, they would be in bad shape.
That'd be the end of the Republican Party, because they're misogynistic, patriarchalism, patriarchal. You know what I mean? It's a patriarchy cult,
right?
Basically male dominated. And then if you look at the interns in the group picture, it was lily white. You looked at the Democrats, it was all looked like it looked like a mosaic. Looked at theirs, it was all lily white. I'm going, what is wrong with this picture? It's completely unrepresentative of America. No, it's unbelievable. We've had to suffer these people long enough. They're against.
I looked into it. I looked into this because we're striving hard as independent grassroots media to be as accurate as we can. We've got to be. We've got to be better than what we're getting from the mainstream media.
I'm totally accurate. I'm reporting on, I've seen.
I know you are. There's no one more versed in the corruption of the Donald Trump presidency than one.
Well, Lawrence Tribe's pretty good. Tribe's pretty good.
but I want to add something here about this, guys. It is hard to know for sure how successful the Trump administration was at undercounting the non-white population in the United States.
We don't know.
It's not like there's another stronger shows that they'll be shrunk in absolute numbers for the first time in U.S. history. And I have been seeing this.
Wow.
I have been seeing this and feeling this through my, I've been doing this stuff for 10 years now. I've never done anything this long in my whole life.
Maybe breathe.
Yeah, other than that. Yeah. But the results, is that white people are now only right at 58% of the population, down nearly
going down.
Down 70%, Mr. Rich. That's a huge number. 70%.
A huge number.
It's a huge number, Mr. Rich. And go ahead, sir.
I think if anyone was undercounted, though, looking at the numbers, it had to be the black population. I mean, they're having kids.
Yeah.
And they've actually dropped. I honestly don't believe that.
No.
I think they were undercounted, in my opinion.
They were ignored. I'm sure they were told, don't go in those neighborhoods. Don't even bother. You'll get killed. You'll get mugged. It's too dangerous. So I'm sure they were actively discouraged. So I would take the black population. I would double it. I think that's probably closer to what we really have.
Okay. Here's what the data said in the year 2000. The black race was about 11 point something percent, and then
I'd say it's closer to 20. Closer to 20.
And then in 2010, it went up to 12.1, and from 2010 to now, they're saying that the black race has not, increased, which going to Rich's point, which is going to Rich's point. And what we saw, and Rich, I want to get you to comment after I make this point, because you wrote an outstanding article a couple of months back entitled "The Insurrectionist Party." But what we saw and what we have seen, Trump's reaction to this information we're talking about today, Trump's reaction to losing the 2020 election by attempting a coup that got to the point of inciting a violent insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. That's how serious this is, guys.
Yes, it absolutely is.
It doesn't get any more serious. I mean, people were killed. I mean, the one woman trying to break into where the people were sequestered, the guy had to open up with a firearm because she was getting into a space that was being guarded by the Secret Service. Other people, we found people who put pipe bombs by the DNC, the GOP headquarters. Pipe bombs. Those can kill you. And there was a lot of other things that happened, and I'm sure more will come to light. But the main point that we're making here is what triggered this severe white racist backlash, the changing demographic of American society. Right. And they labeled it on Fox News as this this invasion force, this replacement thing of the white races being replaced, we're being marginalized, which is totally absurd. I mean, the power structure in America is almost unilaterally white. It isn't like we're gonna, be phased out of existence in the next 10 years or a decade. It's not gonna happen. Well, so this whole thing is just fear mongering and white supremacist policy drift by the Koch brothers, Mercers, who just want to keep this white oligarchy going. Much the same as in other countries. Putin's been pretty down on foreign people investing in his country. Turkey, Hungary, this white ring, wing kind of reactionary global phenomena should make us, realize that Trump isn't the only one doing this.
Mr. Rich.
Yes, sir.
Are the Republican establishment politicians afraid of Donald Trump?
Yes, they are.
In the Beltway press, it is fashionable to describe the machoism, and displays of fealty to Trump. These people bow down to him, in my point of view, from what I've seen. But are they literally afraid of him because are they afraid of him?
Yes, and the reason is it's about one single issue: control. The Koch brothers can't control Donald Trump. The Mercers can't. And if he gets in power, it'll be like Hitler in a lot of ways. All the rich people that put him in there were suddenly under his thumb. And I think that's something they realize and they don't like.
Right. And knowing that he is still beloved by the GOP base, and that he can turn the masses against them with a drop of he can't tweet no fucking more, thank God. But he definitely going to get a minute on Fox News.
Yeah. Well, he has surrogates now.
He does.
Yeah, he has surrogates who will, speak the thing. The thing is, his base is totally rabid. They're violent. They're heavily armed. They're heavily drugged. Uh, 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 Trump's own children. I mean, I've heard that, Trump used to snort Adderall 70 times a day, but that was only with someone that knew him for at least 10 years. What would they know? Trump's children look to be, to be cocaine cowboys, pretty much permanently addled. But the other part of it is that Trump's followers seem to be very much on the kind of bottom scale of, let's say, emotional maturity. In other words, they're very gut-driven, kind of, just at the flip of a switch, at the drop of a hat, they seem to jump in their little pickups and go running off to try to right some wrong, or head to the border, or what is it, that Taco Bell heading for the border? Wasn't that a advertisement?
Yeah, well, let me add to that. I'm from rural America. And Mr. Rich, I'm going to get you to respond to what I'm getting ready to say. I am from rural America, and I grew up around the type people you're talking about here, and I happen to know that even there may be Trump supporters and hardcore Republicans, but they really are really wonderful, family value driven people. They have, they're not monsters. But am I over the top when I say that they are very much conditioned and brainwashed, Mr. Rich?
No, you're not. That's exactly what it is. Fox News says what they want to hear, and they twist it to what the Kochs and their network and the people for the Council for National Policy want them to say. And with the ownership of all the TV stations, with the exception of Disney, in the hands of very rich white men, nothing gets really ever done. It's all either on one side, it's very strong advocacy of right-wing politics, and the other side is kind of milquetoast nothing. You can say MSNBC, but if you listen to them, there's not much there either.
Right. Yeah. They all share Trump's belief that the best way to react to a racially diversifying America is to gut democracy so that a white conservative minority can lead.
Exactly.
Yep. And to rig it to make sure they do. That's what we're facing in these midterms. We're going to have to crush them in the midterms.
I'm totally concerned about the midterms, Mr. Chris. I'm not going to pull any punches. We've got some work to do, guys. On the midterm,
it's looking serious. Well, they got all the bloody money in the world. They've done nothing except rob us blind. Now these people have huge war chests from that $1 trillion tax giveaway. These corporations, unfortunately, they are loaded for bear. And right now, we're not looking that great because we've been under the heel of this COVID plague, unemployment, high numbers. A lot of us.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest too. On the left, we have a hard time getting on the same page a lot of the times with issues. But the thing, these democratic shifts should be benefiting the Democrats electorally. Yet, Republicans are set up rather nicely, guys, for big wins both on the state and federal levels in
God help us.
And
God help us.
2022. I know. Republicans are aggressively and sometimes, Mr. Rich, illegally gerrymandering congressional districts in previous cycles. We know they have. In North Carolina, my home state is, synonymous for it, and hold total control over the redistricting process in 20 states. That's a lot to overcome, isn't it, Mr. Rich?
It is. It's a lot, and I don't know that. But this is nothing new, to be very honest.
No, it's not. That's what I was saying. I mean, my home state of North Carolina has been in federal court more than any other state in the union for illegal gerrymandering type situations.
Yeah, Florida's been there too, but there is a law from 2010 that demands it. Let me ask you guys a question: are all laws and all amendments, let's begin with amendments, of equal value? What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Chris.
No way. No way.
Well, let's think about, there's the First and Second Amendments that we hear about all the time, right?
Okay.
But what about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments?
14. The 14th especially. So it's, I mean, it's totally laser sharp. It's not like there's any ambiguity in it. You know, people who support a resurrection, who've taken the oath of auction, an oath of office, and then work against that same government, they're told that they have to be taken out of the political process completely.
Well,
go ahead with your point, Mr.
Okay, well, the 13th is about the ending of slavery. The 14th is about granting citizenship to all Americans, black, brown, whatever, who are here. And the 15th is about free elections. Now, those three amendments are forgotten in everything the right wing says, the cons and the progressives say. They pretend they don't even exist. Okay, all we hear about is the first and second. But these amendments really give the basis for a fair and equal process of elections. And yet that's why they've packed the Supreme Court and every other court they can, because they need to have these three amendments forgotten about.
Right. They sure do.
Yep.
And you know what's going to make it worse is 18 states have passed voter suppression laws this year alone, sir.
Right, but got to remember the 15th Amendment says, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But they've been able to play with it over decades and figure ways around it. And the bottom line of all this is, it's against the Constitution they swear they are backing. They don't. But it's against the Constitution what they are doing. And these are the three amendments that say no.
Right.
But you got to remember how it all happened. The Tilden-Hayes Compromise in 1876, which ended Reconstruction, was also a lie. In 1876, the Democrats, who are now the Republicans, said that they would not introduce voter suppression and segregation, but they did. They did there was a second compromise in 1877 in trying to get the election passed after they used voter suppression and packing the ballot boxes to get Tilden, the Democrat, a win in the election.
Right.
Hey, it was the Tilden-Hayes Compromise. So in return for letting Hayes get in there and not having a constitutional crisis, they ended the occupation of the South by the North.
Wow, that is interesting. Mr. Chris, in some cases, sir, the laws not only suppress voters at the ballot box, but what our research here in the House of Public Discourse has found, it's also empowering Republican-controlled state legislatures to monkey with election boards on the local level and the actual voting counting systems. Now, I know you've had some knowledge of some of the practical stuff that's happened already, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. And do we not have to guard against physical stealing of the vote?
Well, what they're putting in place is that they're giving politicians the ability to override the local elected officials, and then the ones who are nonpartisan, those who are just part of the counting machinery of just taking care of, the vote that happens in every civic election. So what they want to be able to do is, if they don't like the result, then they can just get some politician to say, oh, it was corrupt, or something went wrong here. We're going to throw those votes out, and we're just going to put X, Y, and Z into place. In other words, at that point, it's what we have is basically a state-level Stalinism. Stalin said it's not the votes that counts, it's who count the votes. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the Stalinistic kind of paradigm, which is that we'll decide who won this election. And that is the end of representational democracy in America. And really, it's kind of putting the lights out for the world. Because America is supposed to stand for something.
It's one of my it's one of my strongest fears, sir, no doubt. And Mr. Rich,
right here.
To add to what Chris was talking about, to nullify elections that don't come out the way they like, all of this is an effort to preserve the power of the dwindling white conservative minority.
Absolutely.
The Republican Party in the past toyed with the idea of changing their political strategies and policies, focused in order to attract more voters of color. But Trump in 2016 and his enduring popularity with his base settled the question permanently. I mean, it was, the question was not even up for grabs anymore, in favor of the GOP being a white identity party. Would you agree that the Republican Party is a white identity party, sir?
Yes, I would. And they're going right down the same road the Redeemers did after Reconstruction, or doing Reconstruction immediately after, to reimpose segregation. I think it will go that far.
I have no qualms that it will go that far. And I don't have any reservations that these people will have us back in Jim Crow quicker than flies on you know what.
Well, we already are there. We're already there now. I mean, legally, they've put into, remember, everything that Hitler did was legal. It was according to the law. I mean, not him killing his political rivals. Obviously, he didn't get caught for that. But the fact of it is that they're doing this legally and through the courts and everything. And this is a real danger because they're using the constitutionality of these state legislatures and even the Constitution itself against the actual purpose for what the Constitution was designed and built for.
Exactly. Absolutely, my good buddy. And it's been made clear to this broadcast journalist that any effort to expand the voting base by dialing down the racism and reaching out to voters of color threatens a backlash from this white entitled identity base that they have.
The Southern death cult. The Southern death cult.
And so the GOP has embraced an anti-democracy strategy, in my point of view, fiddling with the election laws to make it harder and harder for the liberal majority to vote. And the word liberal, I'm not a liberal. I'm a progressive. I wrote an article many years ago. There is a difference. Liberals and progressives get lumped together, and yes, we have a lot in common. But I'm the progressives, the independent vote, anyone that don't go along with this, don't fret on me. I'm a white boy and I'm running the show shit. These you're going to be considered a socialist, a communist, blinded. All of the name calling. But Mr. Rich, of course, the assaults on voting rights predates Trump. I mean, it didn't start with Trump.
No.
But Mr. Rich, Trump, by shamelessly attempting a coup and even inciting a violent insurrection, has really taken the GOP's anti-democracy movement to a whole new level. Would you agree to that?
Yes, I would. But I also think that Trump is a symptom. He's kind of the boil that's popped up. He's a con man. I think if you really want to see who's doing what and what's really happening, you have to look at the forces at work. And the place to do that is a group just outside of Washington, the Council for National Policy. They're a group of evangelicals, very rich businessmen, corporatists, racists, you name it. They're there. They are the group that formulates the strategy for people like Trump. In fact, he had 3 people in his cabinet, in his inner circle, that were very high-ranking members of the Council for National Policy.
Yes, and
they ran that show.
Yes,
But he was the one who probably ran the coup. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that Kellyanne Conway, who is a board member,
Right.
and of the council, and the other two that were there, they had a lot of daily input into what Trump did.
And guess who else did that nobody wants to talk about?
Who's that?
Miss Jenny Thomas, Supreme Court
Yes.
wife of Clarence Thomas.
She is a member also.
She's a major player in the National Policy Council policy. Chris, I have something for you here. You recall how he kept slinging out racially diverse cities like Detroit, the Motown Get Down, where I live, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. You remember in his attacks on the election, making it clear that he feels like residents of these cities aren't real Americans.
Real voters.
And here's my point, and this is what I want your response to. Do you think Trump's shamelessness is the biggest gift to the modern GOP? His absolute
that and his cruelty. It's the exteriorization of his racism, his cruelty, and really, if you get down to it, it's sadistic. In other words, it's taking pleasure in the suffering and the oppression of others, especially those that really can't fight back, that don't have the financial or economic means to be able to stand against these people who are very well entitled, very well financed. So it's basically just the bully in the schoolyard, for these people that have basically been disenfranchised or marginalized. These are the ones who are really bearing the brunt of this racist attack on the American democratic principles, which are enshrined in the Constitution.
Absolutely, my brother. Thank you for that awesome point. Mr. Rich.
Yes.
We were brought together, me and you, on Facebook because both of us have done a lot of work in the area of authoritarianism. Please forgive can't get my words out tonight.
No problem.
Authoritarianism. A lot of Republican voters have quietly believed for a long time that they deserve to control the country, no matter how few of them there actually are. I know this to be a fact up front and personal because that's how my family and my parents and a lot of people that I grew up with feel. And they might want to say, no. But in actuality, I mean, I wasn't born yesterday. Okay. I know how they act. And I know you are very much an authority on this. They think people, and I was just put down today by somebody I grew up with. They don't think I'm a real American because, I don't, hunker down with right-wing politics. I'm less of an American than they are. You're aware of this mindset. You've written about it much, and I'd just like for you to add to this.
Well, it goes so much deeper than that. I mean, so much of this country has been built through abusing others. We took away lands and resources from the Indians, to start with the Native Americans. Then there was slavery. And then there's economics, where the very few rich people work people to death for next to nothing. And this is kind of where we're headed again. And it's the abuse culture that's happened. That's what they're defending. They can call it whatever they want, go as far as they want about racism or not racism, or, all these excuses. There is no real excuse. It's all about being able to abuse others without recourse, that it be institutionalized, socialized, and Christianized. That's what everything is. It all stems from that, just different versions and different lies, different myths, but that's what it is.
Yes, it is. And Chris, hold on, Chris. I think your mic's muted. Unmute your mic, Chris.
There we go.
There you go. Chris, Trump opened the closet door, buddy, and let that idea roam free that the whites, this is a white man's world, And on Fox News, the blasting of the god awful fascist propaganda has just been overwhelming. I'd like to get your idea. It used to be only neo-Nazis who were claiming that it's white genocide that is in play going on right now. The white race is being exterminated. If conservative whites have to share power with other people, do you think the real simple ABC 1, 2, 3 problem that we're talking about right now is that the whites do not want to share power with what is the melting pot and growing, as this census data has shown us, diversifying America. They want to keep it snowflake white and all of everyone else in submission. Am I over the top in that?
No, what we're looking at is a very damaging and perhaps fatal divide in the American political body politic between people that are heavily armed, not very well educated, filled with a lot of angst and fear, who feel that the black race, the immigrants, the brown race, these people are their enemies, which is completely fallacious. Most of the red states are actually way in debt to the federal government. Due to Kentucky being a good example. What was it, $168 billion deficit? Most of the red states run at a deficit, and the blue states are the ones carrying these people. Meanwhile, we're watching the demographics change, and these people are actively demonizing and blaming people who are, by and large, the ones who are actively working and trying to make their societies better. You know what I mean? So the hardworking people out there in the fields, the migrant farm workers, the other people, these are the ones that you're finding in these mass, chicken farms and Purdue and all the rest of this. This is where these corporations are getting this cheap labor. But on the other hand, they're fighting against them in the courts and the social area. But meanwhile, they're exploiting them economically. How can they have it both ways?
Right.
And it's amazing.
Mr. Rich.
Yes, sir.
Is all of this what we're talking about tonight just a prime of example of the disease that we know as authoritarianism?
Well, yes and no. I disagree with you, Chris, on one thing. I think it's much more than just racism involved. I think unless is economic exploitation too, and not just on the racial basis. You got to remember that probably 3 or 4% own 50% of all the wealth in this country. Okay, that's not something that just happened. There's more. They're using racism to hide that. If most people maybe know the numbers but don't understand the ramifications of that, that is, I think, is what's driving everything and what is being hidden.
Well, yes. Well, you got guys, now like Newt Gingrich, the old hoghead moonbeam guy,
Right.
Who goes on national TV insisting that merely living in a multicultural democracy is the equivalent of eliminating traditional classic American values. So what he's saying in a nutshell, the more diverse America becomes, the less traditional classic American will be. And go ahead.
I think also what he's saying is racism is as American as apple pie.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
And also Trump and his allies give the ideological justifications to the effort, to the GOP's efforts to undermine democracy. And what they use for justification is shamelessly white supremacy. I mean, they are using white supremacy as their reason for it's their white supremacy is their modus operandi. Am I wrong in that?
No, you are definitely right. They're using the same playbook as the Redeemers did, except a little more sophisticated version.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're using
Well,
and the
mass
same
media.
playbook that the Taliban are using in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So let me add, Chris, answer this question for me. I asked the question to Rich. What were the Republicans afraid of Donald Trump earlier? And now I'm going to ask you this. So, the Republican brass doesn't embrace him because they're afraid of him. That's my opinion. They embrace Trump because they see their power slipping away, and they see how this guy, and we have covered this for 2 years now, and we have seen how the evangelical community have thought he was the Messiah. Donald Trump is holding power because these people know that he has the base by the balls. What's your feelings on that, Chris?
Well, what he's done is he's taken the, I guess you might call it the white victimology of, this kind of grievance politics, where they're playing the fact that even though they're the most over entitled, totally coddled group in America, that they are somehow the victims and at the receiving end of all this bad stuff, when the opposite is actually true. They're protected by the police. Societally, they're given a status that black or immigrant people or brown people could never even dream to have due to the inequalities in our economic system. So these people who are crying wolf, basically saying that they're getting the short end of the stick, are actually really over entitled. And if you see some of these people that were put in jail while they're waiting to go to trial, we were getting things like, the food in jail isn't good enough, the beds are too hard, I saw a bug on the toilet. I mean, are these people, what universe are they living in? You know what I mean? That they think that they can actually, somehow entitle themselves out of jail. I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
Yes,
A bunch of children.
Yeah, they view him, for better or worse, as the right man to lead their anti-democratic movement.
Perfect. They got the perfect guy.
Yeah, the perfect guy. And Mr. Rich, unfortunately, Trump and Republicans have good reason to think they'll be able to capture permanent power despite their shrinking voting base. After all of these anti-democratic moves on the state and local level could be stopped right now if only the slim Democratic majority in the Senate would pass legislation barring partisan gerrymandering. What else can we do, Rich? I mean, in the foundations movement, for example, something that's another show, but something we're a part of. We have discussed before. There was recent reports that came out in both Texas and Florida that over 4,700 people have died because of the direct policies of the governors of that state. Do the families, for example, have a recompense or a apparatus in place where they could sue those governors for wrongful death?
Not in Florida. See, that's what they've done over the years. That's what 20 years of Republicans being in power in Florida has done. You can't sue the government.
Destroyed it.
Yeah, I agree. And they have insulated themselves. They've used their power to insulate themselves from their actions. And that's what anti-democracy is. And that's how authoritarianism works. It's not somebody out there in jack boots shooting up your door. It's the little things like taking away your ability to have a demonstration or to have recourse against bad policies or controlling elections. That's how it works. And that's what they're doing.
Right. And Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, we're given the right in the Constitution to protest. The people in the southern states are working around the clock to make it actually, if you're caught in a protest, Black Lives Matter, going to take away your housing, going to take away your food stamps, going to take away your welfare, going to take away anything of any kind. They'll probably take away your license next. The thing is, we are seeing a real vindictive side of not just Trump. Trump's just like Rich was saying, he's just a symptom. He's just a boil that's popped up. The underlying anger and rage of these people seems to be against people that they feel have it too good. They're not suffering enough.
Yeah.
I mean, is this just ridiculous beyond belief? Things aren't hard enough for them.
Yeah,
things aren't hard enough for them.
That's a great point, Chris.
It is. And Mr. Rich, to add to that point.
Well, I think they're very much afraid of having done to them what they've done to others. That is the great fear.
There you go. I was waiting for you to come on out with that.
Well, I mean, look at we've had 100 years of segregation, slavery since then, and this neo redeemers action since then, starting with Lee Atwater, and going on totally all the time,
right?
To this day, and it is.
I'm gonna tell you what it is for me, and I think a lot of people. It's a deeply depressing thing.
Yeah, it is.
The trends captured by today's census would, in any sane society, sir, be cause for celebration. I'm here in a celebratory mode tonight because, hey, we're digging in. We're making process. These white entitled oligarchs are not going to own my shit too much longer. But we are on the verge of having an urban, racially diverse democracy where people of different backgrounds can come together to create a dynamic society that inspires creativity and innovation. And am I wrong, Mr. Chris, in my observation that this is the last thing that these Trumpism people want? They cannot handle the change.
I'm afraid so. Ever since Barack Obama got into the White House, it seems that we have watched a virtual unraveling of American society with people that just couldn't keep it under wraps anymore. In other words, it just had to come out. It's like in the last days, in a biblical sense, where it says, those, we will know them by their fruits. In other words, those who are, evil or have hatred against their fellow man will be, obvious. They will stand out. And those, of course, who are fighting for peace or fighting for, equality and the egalitarian ideals of America will be seen to be on the other side. This is actually becoming crystallized more and more every day.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has, sir. And Mr. Rich.
Yes, sir.
I wrote an article several years ago called "The American Dream Has Been Hijacked by the Capitalist."
It absolutely has.
And the American dream is without a doubt under a real threat right now because of bitter white conservative minority feels entitled to rule over a majority. Is it almost as simple as 1, 2, 3 with that?
It is as simple as 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's the abuse culture, and they've had it in place for the entire length of time this country has existed, and before.
Yes. Chris, Mr. Chris, Mr. Salvation Rose, let me ask you this. Unless something is done and done real soon, sir, they may very well get their way on a permanent basis. Has not the research showed that? We on
God forbid. God forbid. I'll tell you this. If they don't enact, and Merrick Garland has said something on this, and so has the Justice Department. He has said that any of these people that try to put in place something that goes against the letter and the spirit of the Constitution in their desires to overturn fair and legal elections will suffer the wrath of the Department of Justice, and they will come after them. They will overturn these illegal means that they have banked so much on in being able to cancel the black vote, immigrant vote, brown vote, poor vote. In other words, he says that these are not going to be allowed to stand, but it's going to be a full court press if 20 states are doing this, and we're going to have to go after them one by one. This is going to be a disaster. This is what they're going for, but it's not going to stand. We have Merrick Garland's own statement on that particular fact. But what we're really looking for is the succession in American society, exactly like that of the Civil War. These people have left America's democratic process, so they're not even really Americans because they have decided to turn their back on democracy, which is basically supposed to be our guiding light, our single, light for the republic, was to the rule of law, not by men, and then a series of ideals, rights, statutes that would support separation of church and state. The evangelicals want to overturn that as well. So we're looking at a different version of America at the end. And, that's the real battle we're looking at.
Well said, Chris. Very well said.
And Mr. Rich, what I want to do now, I'm going to play, I would indulge you guys' patience. I'm going to play, I think it's an excellent, informative video about authoritarianism, because I think all of this that we're talking about and everything that's going on, the another brick in the wall mentality of all these Trump supporters that, that hinge on this guy's every word, is all a direct result of authoritarianism. And for those out there who are not, there's a lot of folks that don't know what we're talking about when we talk about authoritarianism. And I kind of would like, I think in closing the show tonight, I thought it might be helpful and useful and of some value to educate folks on just what authoritarianism in the global age looks and sounds like.
Very good.
Many considered the fall of the Berlin Wall as the beginning of a free world. The United States had won the Cold War.
You can make your point, Rich.
Was that all countries would embrace democracy.
All I want to say is I think the Democratic Party is ill-equipped
and undermine dictatorships.
to be our
These
warrior in
dreams
this.
have not come true. China has become a dominant power. The Arab Spring failed, and countries like Russia and Turkey have moved away from democracy. And even in the West, a free media can no longer be taken for granted, and independent judiciaries are also under pressure. And while internet did increase people's access to information, it has come with fake news and massive digital surveillance. Many people are worried about authoritarianism. Political scientists can help us understand what authoritarianism is and how it might relate to other tendencies such as populism or xenophobia. To understand authoritarianism, we need to look at more than elections. We must get away from seeing states as separate units that are either democratic or authoritarian. Instead, we should study authoritarian practices. These can occur within democratic states, by several states collaborating, or with the help of corporate actors. These authoritarian practices are about sabotaging accountability. This is done in two ways. First is lying to the public, or keeping secrets from them without a legitimate reason. The NSA, for example, helped by secret agencies in many countries, was snooping on millions of people. This was done with data obtained from the biggest tech companies. Their spying program was repeatedly denied, until this became impossible. The second way of sabotaging accountability is by disabling voice. Even in democracies like India and Mexico, journalists and activists are regularly found dead after criticizing those in power. Governments like Iran and Syria harass and try to shut up critical voices even far beyond their borders through the internet. Understanding authoritarianism as a practice allows us to understand how these practices function, not just in dictatorships, but even in democracies, in transnational settings and with corporate help, when they thrive, and how they are best countered. Do you want to know more about authoritarian practices and what research can tell us? Go to www.authoritarianism-global.uva.nl.
Guys,
Yeah.
hold on.
I'm right here.
Hold on. I had something interrupting me there. Guys,
No problem.
I want to thank you guys for coming on the show tonight. But Mr. Rich,
Yes, sir.
we have a book soon to be coming out, The Rationalist Handbook.
Yes.
And I know I've got 4 chapters I wrote in it, and I know you've got many, and so does Mr. Ken Whitfield and Carol Ann.
Collaboration.
But much of that handbook covers authoritarianism.
Yes, it does.
And I look forward. I can't wait till we get that book published. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show tonight. We're live streaming from the House of Public Discourse Radio.com.
My pleasure.
The House of Public
Mine too.
Discourse Forum.
Yeah.
We're streaming right to your Facebook page, and we want everyone to know out there in the House of Public Discourse Forum that we're going to be keeping our nose to the grindstone, and we're going to be pumping out some serious truth-telling journalism. And we love you all, and everyone have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday night. Thank you for being on the show, guys.
My pleasure.